In this video, we discuss how and why this person became a part of the furry community, how this allowed them to become confident with their identity as someone who is non-binary and bisexual, and explored how the pressures of a judgmental and critical mother made them yearn for this kind of acceptance. We also discuss some of the controversial sexual aspects of furry culture. If you like this kind of content, where I interview people on VR chat, make sure to like and subscribe for more of just that. And as always, thank you for watching. You are in a furry outfit, in a furry avatar.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about how you first identified as a furry, how you came about that.
Because I grew up around anthropomorphic stuff, like in comic books, cartoons. Even my dad, he usually draws a lot and drew a lot of characters who were anthropomorphic animals, for example. It goes by nature that I will follow suit, but I will basically be a furry in the future.
What is a furry?
Being a furry is someone who loves anthropomorphic stuff and loves, for example, cute stuff, at least in my opinion. But it's not something like completely sexual, even though there can be cases where it can be sexual, but that's another story and different from any other prejudice that every other person has.
I feel like you have to explain that every time. I get the impression that I didn't ask you about that, but you felt compelled.
I used to see on the internet the hatred against furries because, but they dogs and animals like that. No, what are you talking about? So that's why I always say, like, it's not something sexual, don't be scared.
So the question begs to be asked is, why are you a furry? You've told me what being a furry definitely isn't, but what does it mean for you?
Basically, being a furry means to be myself in this case. Like, I love cute stuff. I love stuff about what if, for example, what if animals were for real anthropomorphic or had our own society? In my case, for example, I started with werewolves when I was a kid, and from there on, I didn't even discover to be, for example, bisexual. And I know it is not furry, but it's a gateway to be a furry.
I guess there is this element of being part of a wider platonic group. From what I've researched around the area, there's a lot of sort of acceptance and a sense of community.
Yeah, 4 to 5 months ago, I even discovered to be non-binary. If it wasn't for being a furry and for loving the stuff that I do now, I would have probably lived a miserable life, questioning about my identity. Who am I? Who I do belong to?
Right.
And probably I would be a sad person, or I don't know.
Right. The community gave you the freedom to express your identity.
Yes, exactly. Of course, I am a human. No doubt on that. But I would like to perceive myself as a complete normal person with no characteristics that are... I don't care about my gender, for example. Being a werewolf would mean for me to be the person I want to be.
Right.
A nondescript person with an ambiguous gender, and at the same time be cool as because I just love the designs and I love wolves and dogs.
Right.
Even though I have a cat that I love in real life, but in general I love wolves more. It's the principle of the mask. In the Japanese culture, they say that you have lots of masks under you. When one of these masks, you are the person that you wanted to be, but under this mask, you are yourself. At least that is how I perceive it. But most of the time, the community is amazing, supportive of helping children. Some of them even go to children's hospital to cheer them up, give them permits and stuff, mind you.
I keep thinking about that statement you made about the masks. Ultimately, furry persona, which for you is a true expression of your true self, is still a mask, isn't it?
I mean, in this case, I always claim that it's a mask. In real life, only a few people know who I am and what I do. Nobody asks. One of the rules of the furry fandom is even to have consent. Without consent, you will not go that far. And that's one of the few things that I like. Because there's still a common misconception that if you're a furry, you commit stuff like yiff or just hugging, snuggles.
What is yiff?
Do you really want to know?
Well, I don't know what it is.
Basically, yiff is basically porn with anthropomorphic characters.
What makes people watch that? What makes people watch yiff porn?
It is not completely strictly porn. It can be anything. It can be even a pinup drawing. It can be a normal drawing where...
But a sexualized image.
Of course, sexual intercourse. Yeah,
Okay.
sexualized image. Because one thing of a furry fandom is that you can be whatever you want. You can even have any fantasy that you want on some something. So it's just a fantasy.
If you're in a large group of society that is predominantly about free expression and non-judgment, and yet judging others is necessary as a way of self-protection, right? If you have a society that promotes not judging others, it's inevitable that someone else will take advantage of that. What are your thoughts on, how to prevent that within your community?
And to be fair, something that I am not able to answer. I say based how I perceive myself. People go to the furry fandom because of their acceptance. Even acceptance has a limit about what's going on, or about who you identify as, or what you identify as.
I imagine that's where rules are important. Are there any tenets or guidelines?
And to be fair, there are no rules or guidelines around, but just the general rule of respecting each other and not to be a to each other.
I imagine you have your own specific reasons why you are attracted to that kind of space. I imagine it must be because you were lacking that.
My family is pretty conservative about everything, but only my dad knows that I am bisexual. My mom doesn't know anything. She's a fascist. She would like to have the fascist party to come back in my country. But if I were to tell her that I were bisexual, let's say that I would not be that well seen or be laughed at. I've always been laughed at by my mom for something, so I keep many things to myself.
Can you give me an example of something that she would mock you about?
When I was a kid, I bought a false tail that I wanted to have as a keychain. It was part of a furry fandom. I wanted to be proud of myself for once. I wanted to be part of a clique. When my mom saw that, we had a discussion about what I should wear, what I shouldn't wear, and stuff like that. And I never used that tail. And after the discussion, I felt pretty bad, and I felt blocked by my own mother, the one person who conceived me, about anything that I love to do. I've always been called bad words by my mom, but to be fair, it has been detrimental to me. So I come to the furry fandom, where many people accept me for how I look, who I am, what I like, and what I can do. And being a furry made me feel more and more creative as the year come by. It made me even feel more accepted about what I do, what I can do, who I am, how I look.
Yeah, it's really common for a person to reject the expectations that society has for them and to go towards a different society that one's accepted in. I guess the fear that people may have about this furry community is that if you identify as a furry, and then on the extreme end of that spectrum, there's that stigma of YIF and then zoophilia. What's the likelihood of progressing down that and eventually being someone who is
a criminal?
Yeah.
Well, I can say that whoever is a furry gets into a furry fandom because they like anthropomorphic animals and stuff like that. Not because they are sexually attracted to animals. That's not being a furry, that's being a criminal, that's being a zoophiliac, that's a heinous crimes. There's always a misconception that liking furry characters is akin to being a zoophiliac, which is totally unrelated, because if a character is humanoid and has will and intention and can speak and is legal of age, of course there's nothing to be worried about, there's nothing to be ashamed to be attracted about.
Yeah. Right.
So unless you're committing a crime or you are literally yourself to a person, an animal, for example, you're not hurting anyone.
Just playing devil's advocate, that if a person, however, is excessively fantasizing about something that if they did in real life may be criminal, what's the likelihood of that person doing the act? And I would say that a person who excessively fantasizes about that would be more likely.
Very unlikely. Very unlikely that a person who joins the furry fandom will go and an animal. They have to be from the start attracted to animals to do that in the first place, and that's still a heinous crime. It's not a gateway for any kind of crime. It's a gateway to escape reality as it is. But to feel bad about yourself or other people, or even have support from other people, but not for having crimes or for committing crimes like that.
Right. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
It's okay.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Only thing that I want to say is that to any person who can watch this video, if they find their own kid watching furry stuff, safe for work, of course, safe for work.
Yeah.
Let them be. We're not committing a crime. We're just trying to discover themselves, discovering a community that can be even helpful in the future. That can help them get in their own identity, and then they will decide how they would feel like about a community. Everyone has their own issues. We only hide them in other ways. Who with alcohol, who with drugs, who with porn, and who with furry fandom, for example. So we are trying to live our life the best we can.
Cool. Nice one.